She was just a cleaner's daughter at the back gate of Koba Logistics. Until she gave away her lunch, jollof rice she hadn't tasted in days. She thought no one saw her, but someone did. And that changed her life forever. Yemi, you again. This gate is not your mother's farm, the security officer barked, waving her off with his baton. She flinched. I was just leaving, sir. But before she turned, she knelt by the small boy crying in the dirt beside the fence, his school uniform soaked from the morning rain. Quietly, she unwrapped the food from her bag and placed it in his hands. No words, just a smile. Her stomach ached, but her soul didn't. Behind the tinted glass of a parked car nearby, a young man adjusted his cap, eyes narrowed. She didn't look up, but her kindness rose louder than any voice ever had. The rain had not stopped. Thin rivulets crawled across the tin roof, dripping into the rusted bucket that sat in the corner, half full now. In their one-room home, Mama wrapped herself in a faded Ankara wrapper, rocking the baby to sleep while Yemi crouched by the charcoal stove, blowing faint smoke through trembling lips. There was no dinner. Again. Mama, should I go ask Auntie Bola Fogari? Yemi whispered. Her mother looked away, eyes swollen from exhaustion and pride. No, even ants defend their dead, Yemi. We will not beg. Yemi didn't answer. She just held her breath and watched her little brother, Caleb, cough quietly in his sleep. His toes stuck out of his worn school socks, and they hadn't had kerosene for the lamp in 2 nights. The house was lit only by the soft flicker of streetlight leaking through torn curtains. The food she gave that boy today, it could have been Caleb's only meal, but she'd seen his face, lost, crying, alone, and she remembered how that felt. Her mother turned. You haven't eaten. She shook her head. Let Caleb eat first. I'm okay. Double quotes, silence. Then Mama sighed. God is watching. Even if the world forgets our names, He won't. Yemi tried to believe that, but in a city like Ibadan, being poor wasn't just a burden. It was an invisibility cloak. You could scream, bleed, collapse, and no one would turn their head. She rose early the next morning, body aching, and tied her scarf tight. The uniform she wore to work, it wasn't really a uniform, just a second-hand white blouse and dark skirt Mama had patched with blue thread, but it was enough for her to pass as staff when she cleaned the back offices of Koba Logistics, and it was enough to get her past the guards. Today, she planned to mop the warehouse floor in silence, sweep the old archive room, and maybe get a leftover slice of bread from Miss Ronk in HR. Maybe. As she crossed the dusty road, sandals flapping, she didn't notice the same car parked under the mango tree. The tinted window rolled down, just a crack. She's early, the young man in the passenger seat murmured. He wore plain clothes, jeans, t-shirt, but his wristwatch alone could feed her family for a month. The driver chuckled. Boss, you sure you want to keep playing guard? Your father's company is no playground. But the young man's eyes never left her. I'm not playing. I'm watching. It was Friday. The warehouse smelled of dust and old papers, and the buzz of overhead lights barely masked the sound of Yemi's growling stomach. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Her shift had just ended. She removed her head wrap, folded it neatly, and began sweeping the corner by the rear wall. There were no cameras here, no managers walking by, just crates and silence. Why are you still working? A voice asked. It was Fola, the receptionist's assistant, pretty, always chewing gum, rich enough to roll her eyes at cleaners. Yemi didn't look up. I'm almost done. Fola snorted and walked off, muttering something about overdue help. But Yemi stayed behind. Her body was tired, but her heart felt heavier than her arms. Outside, near the trash area, an old woman with a crooked back sat under a shade, fanning herself with a broken file. Her feet were bare, her wrapper torn. Yemi paused. The woman looked lost or hungry. Yemi reached into her bag. She had just one boiled yam piece, cold, slightly hard, wrapped in nylon. She had saved it since morning, just in case. She didn't think twice. She crossed over, knelt beside the woman, unwrapped the food, and placed it on her lap. The woman blinked. Are you sure? Yemi nodded with a soft smile. My brother had more than me this week. I'm all right. She stood, wiped her hands on her skirt, and turned back. No fanfare, no explanation. Just dignity. From behind the water tank, the same young man, dressed in security uniform again today, had been pretending to clean the courtyard wall. His gaze didn't shift. She's done it again, he murmured under his breath. He radioed into his earpiece. Keep eyes off the rear for 5 minutes. I need to test something. Inside his father's company. He wasn't just a rich man's son, he was preparing to take over. And today, he saw something you couldn't buy in boardrooms. Back at the gate, Yemi collected her mop and bucket. The sun was brutal now, and her broken sandals left her feet dusty. As she left, she passed a real guard eating puff-puff by the corner. He laughed as she walked by. Still poor and still proud, eh? She didn't reply. She just adjusted her blouse, lifted her chin, and kept walking. The next morning came with a downpour hot fat. Angry rain slapped the tin roofs of Ibadan, as if the sky itself were upset. Most workers huddled near the loading bay, avoiding the wet walk from the junction. But Yemi arrived, drenched, no umbrella, no coat, just a thin blouse soaked against her skin. She shook off the water like a child from the riverbank, squeezed out her scarf, and walked straight toward the back warehouse, her broken sandals squeaking with every step. Inside the security booth, the young man, today, in full guard uniform, leaned against the glass, watching her. She always comes early, he said softly. Another guard grunted. These poor ones, always trying to impress. But they stay poor. He didn't reply. Instead, he stepped out into the rain without his jacket and walked slowly across the compound. Water splashed against his boots. Yemi didn't see him. She was busy picking up a torn sack, trying to protect the rusty archive files that had been tossed outside. She stacked them neatly on a wooden pallet, hands trembling from cold. She wasn't paid to do that, but she did it anyway. Behind her, the guard approached. "What's your name?" She turned sharply. Her eyes widened for a second at the tall man before her, lean, clean-shaven, with a voice that didn't match his rough clothes. "Yemi," she said cautiously. He nodded. "You're not staff here, are you?" She froze. "I clean sometimes. They don't pay much, but he raised his hand. "I'm not here to report you." She exhaled, relieved. He reached into his pocket and handed her a clean white handkerchief. "Your hand is bleeding." She looked down. A fresh cut on her finger was dripping into the wet soil. She hadn't even noticed. She took the cloth hesitantly. "Thank you." He studied her for a moment. "Why do you do all this, even when no one sees?" Yemi's eyes met his for the first time. "Because I know somebody sees. Maybe not now, maybe not today, but someone will." He gave a small smile and walked away without another word. Back inside the booth, he removed his cap, wiped his face, and whispered, "She's not like the rest." He dialed a number. "Hello, Papa," he said, voice serious now. "Need access to the old employee files." "Why?" "There's a girl in your company who shouldn't be mopping floors." The next week, the rain had stopped, but inside Koba Logistics, the storm was just beginning. Yemi showed up as usual, scarf tied tight, eyes focused, hands slightly raw from scrubbing bathroom tiles. Miss Ronk from HR had tossed her a half-finished meat pie yesterday. It made her smile. It had been a good week. But when she arrived at the break room behind the loading dock, she noticed something strange. On the old table, beside the broom she always used, sat a brown envelope, unmarked, slightly fat, carefully placed. She paused, looked around. No one. Curious, she opened it halfway, and froze. 50,000 in clean bills. Yemi's chest tightened, her breath hitched. That kind of money could buy Caleb new shoes, pay for Mama's medicine, cover 3 months of food. But it wasn't hers. Her hands trembled. She looked around again. Still no one, just the echo of forklifts in the distance and a faint sound of music from the generator shack. She sat down slowly, heart racing. "Maybe someone dropped it," she whispered. "But why here?" She stood up, clutching the envelope tightly, and marched to the security booth. Her knock was firm, unsure, but bold. The young guard opened it. Same clean uniform, same calm eyes. She held it out. "I found this," she said. He took it slowly, studying her more than the envelope. "You didn't open it." "I did, a little, but it's not mine." "You sure?" he asked gently. 50,000 can fix a lot of problems. Her voice cracked. "I know, but if I keep what's not mine, I'll lose what little is mine." For a moment, he just stood there silent. Then he nodded. "You did the right thing." She turned to leave Yemi. She paused. "Most people, they don't return what's left lying around. Even the ones who drive cars." She gave a faint smile. "That's why I walk." As she left, he turned the envelope over. Inside, tucked between the cash, was a small card with his own handwriting. "Let's see who she really is," he whispered to himself. "Now I know." That evening, he called his father again. "Baba, yes, I want her name submitted for the office janitor role. Official contract, she doesn't qualify. I'll pay the insurance myself." The new janitor contract came quietly. No big announcement. Just a printed paper with her name on it, and access to the proper cleaning equipment. Finally, Yemi held the contract like it was made of glass. For the first time, she was official. But peace doesn't last in places where the powerful feel entitled. It happened on Tuesday. The CEO's cousin, Miss Lamy, arrived from Lagos for her surprise inspection. Expensive perfume, high heels, accent half English, half fake British. She strutted into the lobby like she owned gravity. Yemi was mopping near the reception when it happened. Miss Lamy slipped slightly, caught herself, and snapped. "Who put wet mop water here? Are you people mad?" The lobby went quiet. Yemi looked up. "I'm sorry, Ma. I was just you people are always sorry." Lamy shouted. "Can't even clean properly. No wonder you'll remain nothing." Whispers floated. Everyone was watching now. Drivers, staff, even the front desk supervisor, who said nothing. Yemi didn't cry. She just stepped back, dropped the mop, and bowed slightly. "Forgive me, Ma," she said softly. "I didn't mean harm." Miss Lamy rolled her eyes. "Of course you didn't. That's why you dress like you're going to a burial move." Yemi turned slowly and walked away, heart pounding. But from the side wall, someone else had watched everything. That the young security guard, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't intervene. Not yet. But later that day, while reviewing the security footage, he saved the entire scene to a flash drive. He sent it anonymously to the board. Caption: "This is how your company treats its most honest worker." Downstairs, Yemi sat alone by the back steps, eating a small bag of ground nuts. "Fol. I walked by, sneered, and said, 'Why didn't you shout back?'" Yemi smiled faintly. "Mama says, when someone calls you dust, you don't argue. You just wait for rain to fall." Rain returned the next day, the kind that kissed Ibadan's rooftops with outrage. Gentle, sad, like the city was trying to apologize for yesterday. Yemi walked into work with her scarf tied a little tighter, eyes softer but still steady. She hadn't said a word about Miss Lamy's insults. Not to Mama, not to Caleb, not even to herself. But inside, the words still stung. "You people, nothing." She stood by the window in the supply room, watching raindrops chase each other, her hands clenched around the broom handle, knuckles pale. Then a memory came. Mama, years ago, on their compound porch, wrapping cassava in leaves. "Yemi," she had said, "when someone spits in your shadow, don't turn around. Let the earth remember who stood taller." Today, she stood taller. Downstairs, people noticed. The receptionist who once ignored her offered her a cup of tea. Fola, who once mocked her, sat silently during break. Even the cleaner boys gave her space, as if her silence had weight. But none noticed the guard by the stairwell. He watched everything, every movement, every gesture. "She didn't fight," he whispered. "She just stayed noble." That evening, he made a call to the regional manager. "I want to personally fund a worker's meal stipend. One employee, named Yemi Adesua. She's a janitor. She's a leader." The manager laughed awkwardly. "As you wish, sir." Back at home, Yemi boiled yam in silence. Caleb played with a plastic spoon, drawing lines in the ash. Mama sat quietly beside her. "How was work today?" Yemi smiled gently. "The same. You didn't cry yesterday." "No, Mama, good," her mother said, "because the ones who scream usually fall first, but the ones who breathe, they survive storms." Outside, rain fell steadily. Inside, a girl with no title held more power than she realized. She sat by the riverbank that Sunday evening, the one behind the old mechanic's shop where kids sometimes fished with thread and bent nails. Her slippers lay beside her, wet and cracked. The hem of her skirt was muddy. Her headscarf was off, folded gently in her lap like it carried a secret. She wasn't crying, not loudly. But her breathing was uneven, eyes red, shoulders shaking every few minutes. She'd walked for almost an hour to get here, because today, she needed no one to see her strong. No Mama, no Caleb, no guards in fake uniforms, just herself. The girl with tired feet, a kind heart, and an ache she couldn't explain. She whispered softly to the wind, "God, I didn't want to be strong today." She picked up a pebble, rubbed it between her fingers, and tossed it into the river. Plunk. The water rippled like her insides. Then a voice behind her, "You shouldn't walk alone here. You know." She turned fast. It was him, the security guard, or at least that's who she still thought he was. No uniform today. Just jeans, white t-shirt, and eyes that looked like they had seen her, not just watched her. She stood quickly, wiping her face. "I was just thinking." He nodded. "I know. How did you find me?" He smiled. "I asked the cleaner boys. They said you sometimes come here when you need to breathe." She laughed faintly. "So they do notice me." "They all do now," he said, "because when you don't shout, your silence echoes longer." They stood in silence for a beat. Then he pulled something from his back pocket, a small wrapped parcel. "What's that?" she asked. "Bread and fried egg. From my place. I figured you might not have had lunch." She hesitated. He held it out further. "No test, just food." She took it slowly. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not asking why I was crying." He looked away, then said gently, "You don't always have to be okay." She nodded, holding the food close. Then she whispered, "I'm tired of pretending I'm not scared." He looked at her, truly looked. "You don't need to pretend anymore, Yemi." Monday came with bright skies. Yemi wore her best blouse, the peach one Mama had stitched herself from an old wrapper. She even oiled her sandals to make them shine. Just a little. Something inside her felt lighter. Maybe it was the bread and egg from yesterday. Maybe it was the way he'd said her name, like it meant something. At work, she was handed a small, blue ID card. Contract janitor. It said, her picture, her name, official. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. But then came the shift. During her lunch break, she walked into the old HR room to mop the floor. It had been left open accidentally, or maybe not. There was a file on the desk, her name written on the tab, Yemi Adesua. She shouldn't have looked, but she did. Inside was everything. Notes from managers, security clearance, logs, and something else. A printed email thread. From the young security guard to the board. Subject, test subject, observe behavioral consistency. She blinked, read it again, and again. He'd called her a test. Poor girl. Honest. Possibly. Useful for company image rebrand. Her stomach turned. Everything he'd said, every quiet kindness, was it all fake? Her hands trembled as she closed the file, breath catching in her throat. She left the mop and walked out. Didn't speak to anyone, didn't look back. That night, at home, she sat by the window, unblinking. Caleb brought her her own food. She didn't eat it. Mama watched, silently. "What happened, child?" Yemi whispered. "Maybe I was just a joke." She didn't explain. She couldn't. She just wrapped her scarf tighter and curled up on the mat, arms around her knees. Meanwhile, in his office, now dressed in a crisp white shirt and real identity revealed, he slammed the file shut. "Who gave her access?" he barked. His assistant stammered, "I left the HR door unlocked." "She must have." He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. He hadn't meant it like that. Yes, it started as observation, but somewhere between the first mop and the yam she gave away, it had stopped being a test. He picked up his phone, typed a message. "Yummy. I need to explain, please. Just one chance," but it showed not delivered. She had blocked him. For 3 days Yemi didn't return to Koba Logistics. She stayed home, helping Mama wash clothes for neighbors. No one asked why she was quiet. Even Caleb stayed close, sensing something had shifted in his sister. Inside, she kept replaying the line, "Test, subject," like she was a science project, not a person. She deleted the message from him, without reading it, but not her memories, not his face, not the way he had brought her bread without asking questions. She didn't know how to separate the real from the fake anymore. Meanwhile, at the company, things began to change. Without announcement, the janitor closet was cleaned out and restocked. Fresh gloves, new brooms, sanitary pads included. Someone paid for 2 new chairs at the break room with a small card taped to them, "For those who stand all day." Employees whispered, "Who's behind this?" But no one knew. Well, one person did. The man whose name now sat permanently on the office door upstairs, Ayo Adebayo Kochu, the same guard she used to walk past without knowing. He attended every meeting, smiled in every photo up, but his eyes, they kept searching for her. On the 4th morning Yemi came back, no fanfare, just a quiet entrance at 6:42 a.m., Before even the guards had finished yawning, she walked straight to the mop, tied her scarf, and started her work. She didn't speak, didn't ask questions, but when she opened the janitor closet and saw the new supplies, her hands paused. Slowly, she reached for the gloves. They were the right size and clean. She smiled, just a little. That evening, as she left the building, she found something taped to the side of the gate. A small envelope, no name. Inside, 2,000, a bus pass, and a folded napkin with a single line, "Not a test, just thanks." She stood for a long moment, then tucked the napkin into her bag and walked on. She didn't look back, but her steps were lighter. Friday afternoon was hot, the kind of heat that made even shadows sweat. Yemi was mopping near the side stairs when the receptionist appeared. "Oga de call you," she said, not looking her in the eye. Yemi blinked. "Who?" "The CEO's son." Upstairs, her heart stopped. She slowly placed the mop down, wiped her palms on her skirt, and walked up the stairs like she was stepping into a courtroom. Her mind raced. Did I break something? Was I too late today? Did someone report me again? She stood outside the glass office door, heart thumping, then knocked gently. "Come in." The voice, familiar. She stepped in and froze. He stood behind the desk, not in a guard's uniform, but a tailored navy blue suit, clean, confident, polished. He gave a soft smile. "Yemi." Her lips parted, but no words came. He walked around the desk slowly, hands in pockets. "I'm sorry," he said. I don't understand," she whispered. He took a deep breath. "My name is Ayo Adebayo. My father owns Koba. I've been shadowing the company before taking full control." Her knees weakened. She gripped the chair beside her. "You were the guard," she said, eyes wide. I needed to see how this company truly runs, not from a corner office, but from the grum." He stepped closer. "You showed me something I've never seen in boardrooms: kindness, with nothing to gain. Dignity, with nothing to prove." Tears filled her eyes. "But the file, what I read." His face darkened slightly. "I started by observing you. Yes, it was meant to be a test. But very quickly, it wasn't." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small blue folder. "Your name is being submitted for staff development training. You deserve more than floors to mop." Yemi's lips trembled. "Why me?" "Because I've seen people with degrees who act smaller than you, and I've seen you stand tall, even when others threw dirt." She couldn't hold it anymore. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought I was nothing. You're everything they pretend to be." She sat down slowly, silent. He passed her a glass of water. "For now, just breathe. We'll talk again soon." 2 weeks passed. Yemi didn't tell anyone what had happened in that office. Not Mama, not Caleb, not even herself, fully. She just kept working. But something had changed. Her steps were steadier, her back straighter, her eyes brighter. The other staff noticed. Even Miss Runk offered her tea without the usual eye roll. Then came that Friday. The entire company was told to assemble by the front gates for a surprise announcement. Whispers buzzed. "Is it the government? Maybe someone's getting fired." Yemi arrived late, still wiping her hands from cleaning. She didn't expect anything until she saw him. Standing tall, suit crisp, mic in hand. She froze. He smiled, not the way CEOs smile at staff, but the way someone smiles when they've waited for this moment. He spoke. "Today is not about profit or numbers. It's about people." Cameras flashed. He turned toward her. The crowd parted without being told. This young woman once gave her only food to a stranger, returned money she could have kept, took insults without raising her voice, and still showed up every day with grace. Whispers turned to gasps. Someone muttered, "That's the janitor girl." He stepped down from the stage, walked up to her. In front of everyone, pulled something from his pocket. Not a ring, a key to the apartment upstairs. "It's yours." Her hands shook. "But why?" "Because people like you don't need to be rescued, just recognized." Tears streamed freely now. Mama, who had been quietly called there by HR, burst into sobs. Caleb clapped wildly, holding a worn drawing of his sister as a hero. Ayo took Yemi's hand gently, not to show power, but respect. "One more thing," he said, smiling, voice cracking. "I'm not just giving you keys." He got down on one knee. Not with a diamond, with a wrapper from his own mother, folded with honor. "I don't want to save you. I want to stand beside you." The crowd gasped. Cameras exploded. Yemi covered her mouth, crying. Doc then nodded slowly. Yes. She started as the girl no one noticed, and became the woman no one could ignore. Never forget, one small act of kindness can echo forever. Tell us, what part touched your heart the most?